Welcome to our posts. Today we will see stories of r/Pettyrevenge. Told a family that stole my water bottle that I had an STI. Context: I, 22F, work at an amusement park during the summer holidays to make some extra cash on the side. My job role involves checking people's tickets, placing them onto the ride, checking some safety restraints and watching over the ride course in case of an emergency happening. While I was checking safety restraints, I noticed that one of the customers had stolen my water bottle. The man stole my water bottle and passed it to his wife, who then gave it to their child daughter. I briefly noticed it happen out of the corner of my eye. I don't know what came over me. I guess I was just tired due to having to deal with countless tired, exhausted and cranky guests, and I thought that the family needed to learn a lesson to not steal people's water bottles. I walked up to the man and I told him that he shouldn't have stolen it. He looked panicked and apologized, and asked if I wanted it back. I declined and I said that for his information, I have mouth herpes before showing him a mouth ulcer I had, not from herpes, but from accidentally biting my mouth while eating. He looked panicked, and then told his wife, who broke down sobbing, and she called me an a-hole. While telling my friends and family about this, they all seem rather split. Some of my friends thought it was a really funny prank to pull, while a lot of others and my family think that while the family was in the wrong to steal my property in broad daylight, I shouldn't have given the family such a scare from a serious disease. Some questions I got asked on the original post and I couldn't answer. Was it a disposable or refillable water bottle? It was a $10 refillable water bottle. I remember a commenter asking on the original post if it was a Stanley or another trendy water bottle of sorts. It isn't. I don't get paid enough to afford a glorified $50 cup. How do you know he stole your water bottle? Is it possible he thought it was lost? My water bottle has a rather unique design. I got it while on vacation in Japan and the design is very cute, definitely kid-like to some extent, which could explain the reasoning as to why he stole it. I doubt he thinks it was lost property, because why would you drink out of a water bottle that you're gonna return to lost property anyways? Where was it located? While the ride is operating, I stand near the electrical booth, close to the ride exit. The bottle is located in a small corner, in a rather obscure location. If someone were to try and take it, they would have had to go on the ride to access the exit, and since you can see the exit from the entrance queue, the family would have definitely seen me drink out of it at least once. Also, other than the occasional 2 minutes I am away, I'm always either standing near the bottle or holding out of it/drinking from it. Edit. Stranger steals my water bottle and gives it to his kid. I show them a mouth ulcer aka canker sore, sometimes confused for oral herpes, but it's different, and lie to them, telling them it's an STI. Family flips out on me. Edit 2. Holy F, this blew up. I think some people asked me some more questions, so I'll answer them here. Did I tell them I was lying? Nope. Which may make me an a-hole. But I think they really need to learn their lesson. I've had serious illnesses in the past that, if passed to a kid, could really harm them. I think I had pneumonia early February, and I did have strep throat last year August, which, IIRC, can lead to meningitis and scarlet fever, which is not fun to have. How did you afford a trip to Japan but not a Stanley Cup? I can't afford a trip to Japan too. My parents paid for the trip in full because it was a family vacation. I spent like $500 total and I was saving up for months for that. Work hard, kiddos. Why didn't I want it back? It wasn't a super expensive water bottle, and I could always buy another one. Also, I don't know what sort of diseases the family has, considering that this might not be the first time they've stolen a random person's water bottle. I don't want to risk catching whatever they've got if this is a habit of theirs. Also, this post served as a reminder that I should probably get tested for STDs myself. So TYSM to the commenters for reminding me that I should probably get that checked out soon. Next story. I let him cheat, so I can watch him fail. This was years ago, but it still brings a smile to face at times. Back in school, a handful of students, including myself, missed a major test due to extracurriculars. The teacher already arranged for us to take the test in a back room during regular class session. There was a guy, let's call him Eric, who was the typical boy who behaved like he was all that and a bag of chips. Rude, obnoxious, and didn't once talk to me, until that hour in the testing room. Back in school, I was mostly quiet. If RBF was a thing back then, I would have been the poster child for it. I was known to be a bit nerdy, so it wasn't a surprise when he sat right next to me, chatting it up. He went on to tell me how I looked like I could be a Victoria's Secret model and I was one of the prettiest girls in school and blah blah blah. He then asked if he could copy my answers. I smiled and said, "Sure, give me a few minutes and I'll show you my answer sheet." He grinned and twirled around in his seat, fidgeting with his pencil, making absolutely no effort in taking the test. I look up and whisper, "Done. Hurry up and copy." With no hesitation, he hurriedly copies my work. I told him to walk away first so it wouldn't be suspicious. He did. As he was leaving, he did a weird salute and laughed at the other students still taking the exam. As soon as that door shut, I erased the answers I gave him, and filled in the correct answers. I turned my work in shortly after. The teacher said she would take a week to grade them. During that week, Eric didn't say hi to me at all. When he did look in my direction, he would elbow to his friend to laugh at me. I couldn't wait until he got his results. The day finally came. The teacher handed us back our graded tests and the way he stood up shocked shouting, "An F," and ran over to me to see my A+ grade, was chef's kiss. He definitely stopped laughing at me after that. Next story. Lawyer refused to correct his business cards. So this was quite a few years ago, early 2000s. At this point, I had my cell number for about 4 years. Then, one night, I got multiple calls from someone who only spoke Chinese. I kept telling them they had a wrong number, which I'm pretty sure they didn't understand. These calls persisted every few weeks at all times of day and night, but most frequently between midnight and 3 a.m. Eventually, after about 6 months, I received a call from a legal assistant to a lawyer named Colin W. She explained to me that there was a typo on his business cards. Instead of a 3 in his phone number, it has a 2, which was my number. She asked if I received calls just to give the person the correct number. I responded that 199% off the calls I receive are from people that only speak Chinese, and 2, can they just get new cards or write the proper number on it? She responded that they ordered a lot of cards and didn't want to order new ones. But they'll make an effort to put the correction on the card. About 4 to 5 months went by with no late night calls, so I figured the problem was solved. But I was wrong because they stared up again, this time more frequent, like every 2 to 3 days, multiple calls a day at all hours. So I called Colin W. He apologized and said that he ran a very small immigration law firm and that his legal assistant had quit and it was her that made the phone number correction on the card and he was far too busy to remember to make the correction every time he handed out his cards. He asked if I could just give the person calling the correct number. I told him that was almost impossible because 99% of his clients didn't speak English, which he replied with "Try your best," and hung up. This really frustrated me, but what could I do? For the next few months, I tried my best to correct people. But very few understood me and would repeatedly call me after I hung up on them. Then, one day, I was at the mall with friends. A lady at one of those kiosks asked if I'd like to enter a contest to win a trip to Florida or Mexico. My friend was like, "Don't, it's a timeshare scam and as soon as they get your number they constantly call you with, 'You want a free trip,' that you have to pay fees for." That's when I had a great thought of how to get my petty revenge. I entered Colin W. into the contest. In fact, there were multiple contests at the mall I entered him into, from trips to free gym memberships, to gift cards. Side note, I've been receiving calls for this guy for almost a year. Besides his name and number, I looked up his law firm address and email online. Because he wouldn't take my call of me complaining, I had emailed him to get new cards and even wrote a snail mail letter to get him to fix his cards. I had a lot of downtime at work, so I started to enter him into contests online, usually 5 to 15 in a day. I did this 5 days a week when I was at work, and anytime I was out shopping, for about 8 months. I would have continued longer, but at about the 8 months mark, I stopped getting calls for Colin W. Around a week after that, I looked him up online, and he had changed his cell phone number. Edit, I forgot that summer. My boss hired his nephew for high school credits. He thought what I was doing was hilarious, so he spent a lot of his time there contributing to my petty revenge. Next story. How I took down a career saboteur. This story took place in 2004. Each story about work is at a separate company. It all started when a new colleague joined our ragtag bunch of systems engineers deploying ground-based radars around the world. From day one, I could tell there was something off about him. He had these weird mannerisms of always trying to one-up someone else's story and be the center of attention. He struck me as one of those guys who would look you in the eye and smile as he sinks the knife into your back and kiss the wound after getting what he wants. He was also one of those guys who tried to steal everyone else's thunder. Needless to say, he was overly ambitious, constantly trying to undermine me and take credit for my work. I tried to brush it off, hoping it was just a phase, but things only escalated. One day, I discovered he was spreading false rumors about me to senior management, trying to sabotage my career. Basically, this sniveling a hole punk tried telling management I was drinking on the job, appeared high, was very combative and threatening, and an insider threat as he saw me always carrying around external hard drives and must be stealing corporate data. My manager confronted me about the rumors and told me I was on restricted duty for 2 weeks while they investigated. I was furious but decided to play it smart. I took PTO, vacation, for 2 weeks and came back to an unfounded report. Instead of confronting him directly, I started documenting everything. Every lie, every deceitful act, every instance of him trying to play games with my career. I also did something in the gray area by setting up surveillance cameras with sound around my area, think nanny cams. One day I catch him on video speaking to a competitor and divulging proprietary information without an NDA. I then heard him talking to a vendor about an all-expense-paid trip to Hawaii during his vacation time for helping them make a sale with our company. Oh, that is an organizational conflict of interest burn. I knew I needed to act carefully. Using the company's ethics hotline, I anonymously reported his behavior, providing all the evidence I had gathered. The investigation took a few weeks, and during that time, he continued his underhanded tactics, completely unaware of the storm heading his way. Finally, the day of reckoning arrived. I was at my desk when I saw 2 HR representatives and a security guard walking toward him. They escorted him out of the building, and as he passed by my desk, he gave me a cold, knowing stare. He knew it was me who had reported him. I stood up, looked him straight in the eyes, and said, "Next time, find a toy and don't play with me." Yeah, HR did write me up for that line after taking out the trash. At the time I thought it was well worth it. Next story. Rude? Then pay for what you'd have got for free. A long time ago, I was working in a UK accident and emergency department, ED. In came a US citizen, having sprained her ankle on some student break travel holiday. She was most rude to staff, suspicious of everything, and obviously disparaging of the perfectly competent treatment she was receiving from our nice A&E docs, nurses, and X-ray techs, and ever so certain she'd broken it, she hadn't, and this would be missed due to our provincial and undertrained incompetence. This was all treatment which could, and would, have been provided for free, because our paperwork was a pitta and normally the return on something so minor wasn't worth the hassle of filling it in back then. But she obviously felt everyone needed to know it would all, somehow, have been done much better in her best city in the world, in the good old USA. And I was not happy with her attitude. So at the end of my shift, I specifically stayed back to fill the forms in exhaustive detail, and on overtime. Which also went on the form. Then made sure she was booked for an unnecessary fracture clinic follow-up with an orthopedic specialist to allay her fears, and made sure the reason for that, and the billing paperwork for any additional expenditure, was delivered to the clinic with the notes. Next story. Getting revenge on my roommate that rented out space in my home while I was fighting in the First Gulf War. I owned duplex and lived in the front unit. I rented my finished basement to a guy, let's call him Hulk, that was basically a con man. I was shipped out to the Gulf the day after Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. Was gone fighting the Ghoul War for 7.5 months. While I was gone, Hulk rented out my bedroom, quest room, sofa, and some floor space to a bunch of loser friends. Things were broken and missing when I got back. I kicked him out. While I was gone, Hulk picked a fight in a bar with a 70-plus-year-old guy. They went out to the parking lot and Hulk took a swing at the old man. He woke up 3 days later in the ICU of the local hospital. The little old man was a retired union enforcer. Hulk had no health care insurance. He sued the bar and the old man. Frivolous lawsuits were part of his income. The civil suit against the little old man was dismissed with prejudice by the judge. The bar's insurance agreed to pay Hulk $25,000. Hulk owed the hospital $38,000. I knew one of the ladies that worked in the hospital collections office. I told her the name of the bar, the attorney, the insurance company, and the $25,000 settlement. The Hulk is still trying to figure out how the hospital found out about the settlement and garnished it. This was just one of many ways I got Perry revenge on the Hulk. Piss off the wrong person and bad doo-doo does occur. Next story. People walking in middle of road. So I was parked in the grocery store parking lot today, and as I walked to the store I noticed two women walking in the middle of the road. It wasn't that they were unaware, simply they didn't care. It didn't affect me, but people like that are really irritating. People honked and they walked slower. No one could get around them simply because they were being nasty on purpose. I think someone asked them if they could pass. I overheard one of the two women say, "In a minute, patience." In other words, they didn't move. My petty revenge? I didn't realize it until I came out of the store, but they were parked next to me. I was unloading my cart and one told me to move, didn't ask, told. Nope. I unloaded the cart as slow as freaking possible. The passenger needed in the passenger seat and needed me out of the way to get there. I simply smiled at her. As I got in my car, I overheard the woman complaining. Rolled down my window and smiled. In a minute, patience. It felt good. Not quite a Kathy Bates move, but a petty one. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure like, comment, share and subscribe the channel our posts.